Order. Can I get a motion that the agenda for the January 22nd, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted with the addition of an in-camera session for a community group update? Councillor Chouinard.
Make the motion with your addition.
Perfect. Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the January 8th, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented?
Make us all.
That would be Councillor Bevan. All those in favor? Good. Right, moving on. We've got no delegations tonight, departments. Moving to the reports from staff, infrastructure and planning, the landfill condition update. Is this Mr. Martino? Right, is this you or Bruce?
Madam Chair, I'm going to declare a conflict.
Okay.
And Madam Chairman, I will turn the presentation over to our Public Works Manager, Bruce Thompson.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair and everyone. I'm here before you today to provide you with an update on our progress in dealing with the landfill fire and what our next steps will be. So on December 21st, fires flared up on the south side of the working face of the landfill. Over the past 2 weeks, the fire department, in conjunction with public works and local contractors, have been working to suppress and cap the areas. As of today, the area shown on the map attached to your report has been capped with clay to avoid any further surface fires. I'm told the fire threat is very low and doesn't pose a risk to property or the environment at this time. And we continue to monitor conditions each day. So the second slide.
Sorry, we're having unexpected technical difficulties.
It's user error, Martino.
Your face.
How many
Throwing
staff does it take?
I'm not involved, so it's only two.
Right.
Were you closed it and opened it? Did you load it on the desktop?
He's at home watching.
I close it.
Being like, just do this.
Let me close it.
Come on.
It was just on the street, maybe it's on its way with me.
Yeah.
Imagine in your mind a fire.
Yeah. We were just saying this is when Giles is at home watching.
Is he?
What, being like, you guys.
There we go.
There you go.
Why is that not looking at?
You were getting a different, it's a different view.
You want me to go simple one?
We should have bars on the live screen right now, just red, blue, green.
Yeah.
So how was your day at work?
Go to slide again.
We're just giving you a chance.
Also putting out fires.
Get too many. Those all.
Get out of here.
Thanks, Ann. How to add more to
She's trying really hard to help you.
She's like, you just got something on the corner of your mouth right there. Just like,
Come
Come on in, come in.
Yeah, for sure. Steve.
Well, why don't we go forward
Sure.
like this?
So the cause of the fire, the exact cause of the fire hasn't been determined. The site has had a long history, I understand, of smoldering, and flare-ups have occurred over the years. The fire department appears to be affecting the entire dry landfill area, particularly to the south that's highlighted on that map. And it seems to be of significant depth because that photograph that you're looking at there is part of our excavation to try and find the back edge of it. We weren't successful, so what we did is we suppressed it and capped it. Closure and capping of the material pile is deemed to be the best course to remove oxygen and snuff the fire out. And as mentioned, this will continue to be monitored as day by day. So services to the transfer station to accept dry material began again January 8th, and we're running a transfer station between our site and the Hinton landfill. Load sizes are restricted and the large-scale haulers have been contacted to consider alternate sites. All other services for residents are available for dropping off their residential waste. Metal recycling, tire recycling remain available. So the next steps, what I'm calling phase 1, is the assessment and reporting on the condition. The landfill portion of the site will remain closed until a comprehensive site assessment is complete. The assessment will include a thermal imaging exercise, which was done today by a drone. This imaging will determine the extent of smoldering and review the mitigation strategies that we may need to deal with this fire. There's a fire specialist that's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks to view the imagery and give us an assessment of what his thoughts are. And that'll allow us to know whether we need to abandon this particular cell. And if so, we're also working with a consultant to figure out where a new site could be constructed to carry on with our business of landfilling. We issued a request for quotations last week. We reviewed the submissions Friday, and we've retained Omni McCann to help us assess and report on this. Again, the closure and capping of the materials, piles is the best course right now, and according to the fire department. And what we intend to do is review the imaging of the cell itself, what kind of mitigation efforts are required, and as well at the same time explore our options with environment about opening up another cell with somewhere within the site we currently have. We're hoping to get back to you with an update from our phase 1 portion of the assessment by the end of February. That is my report.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you. Through the chair, the imaging that you're proposing, that's just surface temperatures. It's not penetrating seismic information or anything below the surface, is it?
Through the chair, that's correct. And speaking with them today, there should be some fairly significant variance with giving snow cover and as well surface temperatures. The fire chief has been able to pick up those temperatures as well with his device, and this will give us a much broader scope of that.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Breyer?
Through the chair to Bruce. Can you give me an update on what the regulations are for landfills? I know years ago it was normal to just burn all the wood material. How is that different from the burn that we have going on to having a scheduled burn of burn material?
Through the chair, that I'm told at one point we did have a burning permit on the site. And normally through the landfill operation we'll have a controlled burn of materials. This is not what would be considered a controlled burn. It started off in some other manner, and it's not from a burning operation. It started some other way. So we don't currently have license to be doing this. So we did report to environment, and we have given them notice about this, and we're not to be emitting this kind of smoke out of our site.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bevan?
Through the chair, if we have to put another cell out there, how much more land do we have out there to be able to put another cell, and are we close to running out, or do we have more room to go yet?
Through the chair, we have a significant amount of land out there. However, a lot of it is still treed, hasn't been studied for the geology of it. However, we do have some space within the current footprint that we're exploring with Omni and with environment to see if there's a possibility of starting there.
Part of our complication with moving into areas that have not already been reviewed is that the wetlands policy for the province for the green zone, which we're in, has come in place since 2015, which means they consider muskeg to be wetlands, which creates some serious time frame issues for us. So that's why we're exploring our existing footprint before we're going to other measures.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Breyer?
Through the chair to administration, it was noted on the report that it was $40,000 to $50,000 in additional cost. Sorry, it was saying it was monthly cost. Is that $40,000 to $50,000 monthly, or is that $40,000 to $50,000 for the period of January to April to operate as a dry transfer versus a dry landfill?
Through the chair, that estimate has been based on monthly cost, based on the loading, the volume, the weight of material we've received over the last couple of years between January and April. That's the potential. And then taking that total, dividing it by loads that those bins can typically carry, and then the cost associated with hauling them and tipping them at the Hinton landfill. So to clarify, it's a $40,000 a month estimate.
Okay.
Now, and in clarity, that doesn't necessarily mean we would directly incur that cost, but that's the cost that other businesses as well are probably incurring when we add it all together. So a total financial impact as we're unable to collect that waste.
Oh, okay.
And just adding to that, so do you have an estimate right now on total cost to the town? And is that going to be coming as additional costs or out of operating budget? Too soon?
Madam Chairman, we don't have enough information yet to be able to provide you a clear number,
Okay.
which is what we're hoping we'll have more information by the end of February after we've had those meetings and the reports from the consultant. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Okay. Thank you for your update. Good luck. All right. Moving on to infrastructure and planning number 2.
We just want to grab
Oh.
Councilor Shire.
It's your turn. It's your spot now. That's the runner's spot. All right. So, intersection improvement, Highway 748 and 26th Street. Mr. Verhage, Annie, is this you? You too?
We're just getting our,
And Madam Chairman, I will be having Ann DeChambeau present on behalf of the planning department.
thank you for inviting me to come tonight. And as you council's well aware, we had a couple years ago, we had a subdivision that was applied for. It's just west of the Montco Car Wash. The gentleman at that time had 2 lots and wanted to go to 5. That prompted, because of our proximity to the highway, we have to go through transportation, which effectively brought all development in that area to a halt because they wanted expensive enhancements and widening to the intersection. And their policy is to turn that, the cost of whatever they are requiring has to be paid by the developer. So that was a deal breaker for our developers, and they just couldn't afford to develop. And so I'm proud to say that as a town, our organization went to bat for our business people. So we took it to AUMA, we took it to, embarked on a ministerial appeal, which one night I'll have to tell you all about. But anyway, we finally got to the end of it, and happy to say that transportation, we felt their policy was unfair, and they have come to the table after quite a bit of time and agreed that these enhancements, yes, they must take place, but they're willing to enter into a contract with the town where transportation pays 50%, the town pays the other 50%, and the cost is not on our developers. They can now afford to move forward. And we can, we've gotten the waiver. If we go ahead with this agreement, transportation will waive any requirements for the present moment so he can move forward. The amount that would be our share is, I believe, $98,000 in there, $99,850. It wouldn't come out of the 2019 budget that's already set. It's not going to happen before the 2020 year or sometime thereafter. And it is an amount that is, it's in the opinion of administration, well worth it to enter into this agreement. So, but we must, if council is wants to move ahead with this, you must have a resolution, and then we'll be able to effectively move ahead.
We're seeking guidance to be able to bring this forward to our next council to get the formal resolution so we can sign the MOU. which will then direct us to make sure that we're addressing this issue in future budget items.
Questions? Councillor Schneider?
Actually, yes, I would believe we've worked on it for some time. The cost seems quite reasonable because when we had to do the other one on Highway 748 for the hospital, we had like $1 million. So I mean, I totally agree that we can't put it on the one developer because it affects everyone on the road. So I mean, with a cost of $90,000, we don't want to spend it, but I have to agree with you, it's very reasonable and it's worthwhile. If that's what it takes to bring more development, that is a bare minimal cost for us to pay for the developers. So I'm pleased with the outcome, and I agree it's been a long battle.
Councillor Bevin?
Through the chair. As you drive up and down like the Highway 16 or any place else like that, and you see these things going on all around the country here and that, is this, how do they pay for it? Is it a 50-50 split, or does the transportation department pay for it themselves? And that, is there any information on that? You know, because I know if you went to Edmonton, a lot of it was going on. Transportation did pay for it 100% in that. So I just want to know what has all of a sudden changed now that they want our community to start paying half or whatever. Like, I know we don't want to hold up anybody wanting to build in town with that, so I mean, you know, it's a good deal, but I just wonder what has changed, if you have any idea.
Madam Chairman, through to Councillor Bevan, each of those can be different. If Highways has already dedicated that work to be done within their 3-year plan, so to speak, they typically field all of those costs. However, depending on whether you're a city, whether you're a town, whether you're in a county, and the level of infrastructure they're dealing with, they will either pay for or cost share on a different basis. Their opinion is that we have, through the development within the town, we have prompted these costs, though we are in some disagreement on exactly when that should have been brought forward or what has been the catalyst for that. A cost-sharing agreement is beneficial in this type of a scenario where they would otherwise simply state, we're not ready to do the work, so you guys can wait until we're ready to do the work, which would be an undefined period of time. So this does allow us to actually move forward with our own projects in the meantime. However, whether that's a good deal or not is an opinion for each person, I guess.
If I could also add, Madam Chair, we took the position that, as the manager said, if you're in their 3-year radar, well, our position was that because we're rural, we never make it to the 3-year radar. So our developers are always paying. That's what we said was unfair.
Councillor Bevin, sir?
That was my second question to the chair, was that we had talked about this at the previous council, and I thought, you know, something like that should have been on a 3-year plan, and that, and why wasn't it put there? And if that's the case, then why aren't we lobbying them to saying, hey, you know, because we're rural, it doesn't really matter. Let's start putting some of this on a 3-year plan around here or whatever, so that, you know, we don't hold up any of our people who want to build, and as a town, we've got to pay out you know, $99,000 is about $100,000 in that. I mean, you know, I don't see why they don't put us in a 3-year plan.
Mayor Sahar?
Yeah, this, through the chair, this goes back to our AUMA resolution that we brought forward, which AUMA graciously, overwhelmingly supported. There is a working group dealing with this particular policy. The fact remains that with the growth pressures in other areas of the province, places like Edson, Hinton, smaller communities that don't have the growth will never ever see the 3-year plan or 5-year plan or 10-year plan. And the other point to that is they never tell us what that plan is. They just say it's not on our plan, but we're not going to show you or tell you when these things are supposed to happen. I think this has been a significant change in direction from where they wanted us to be to where we are today, and I think it's a good deal overall. And we are continuing to push Alberta Transportation to review that policy and change that policy. That working group will be reporting back hopefully here in the next few months. Unfortunately, the Minister of Transportation has once again declined our meeting request, even though he promised that he would meet with us at AUMA. But he has said that he would be willing to meet after that AUMA working group comes up with a proposal, at which point I know that he's retiring, so we'll have to talk to the new Minister of Transportation. But I want to see this move forward. It's great to see some development happening over there, and it really is an unfair policy for rural communities. When you consider that there's 16,000 vehicles passing through our community every day, and you're telling me that an ATV dealership is going to cause undue harm and attention to that intersection, I have a challenging time with that. So,
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, can you confirm to me that it looks to me like Lot E might be landlocked? Is it access to the First Ave?
Are you talking about this?
No, two
Long,
over
long,
from the
oh,
long,
the long,
skinny
narrow.
Um,
This lot here is
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah. When you look at, I want to make sure I'm on the right photo. What I'll note is that there was a long, slim lot right here. That development did in fact have a boundary adjustment to create this area that is currently being developed, or is currently developed with the Tech Nation shop that is undergoing work. And that was part of the initial catalyst for us being able to put this on the table with transportation, as not only did we want to see the further subdivision occurring, they wanted to address what they view as a safety issue at the intersection based on that development moving forward.
So that lot is fully accessed to 26.
Yeah, it's now a single title. That red striped is now a single title with access to the
To the north.
20.
To the south,
To the south?
No, that's only for construction though.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can, it's got dual access sections.
Any other questions? So, sorry, Councillor Byer?
Through the chair to administration, I think, we started some of these efforts at AUMA as well, with this council. And if the upgrades that they had, the previous council had to put for the hospital, ran in, that price range of that $1 million mark, I think that this is possibly the best deal that we might get at this point in time, given that we'll probably never get on their plan, or maybe too far down the road to be concerned about that. I would prefer to see this go ahead, and on the 2020 budget, I would be in favor of putting it in next year's budget. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may add to that as well, I think one of the really critical pieces to having these projects cost shared is it becomes a shared prerogative to control costs. Whereas if the developer and or the municipality is paying, Alberta Transportation can require significant intersection upgrades at whatever cost they come in at without bearing any of that financial burden. And I think that's also one of the reasons why the costs were contained in this case as well. So.
Okay, good. I also would be in favor in this being put into the next year's budget. I think the idea of us being able to get 5 commercial lots developed is really important and really big, and if we want to move the community forward, these are the steps we're going to have to take. Councillor Chenard.
Just to top on that, where I have to agree with the cost sharing, but also sets an actual precedent, because when we move to the other end of town where we want development, then we have an argument. Because like right now on the east end, but if when we start developing the west end where there's similar highway access, then it gives us a precedent to at least say, okay, this is what happened, because when I used the hospital, we didn't have a say, but now we have an example of all the costs. So I totally agree, this is the best deal we can get.
I think it would also be worth adding as well, it's noted in the report that there are ongoing conversations between Alberta Transportation and the county regarding the closure of First Avenue. The town is comfortable with that, but that is not, as far as we know, been resolved yet. So.
Do you have everything you need from us? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, nothing from corporate services, so moving on to community services, starting with the First Peoples and Traditional Territory Acknowledgement. And Nishko, is that, Deanna, is that you? Yes, come on up.
So, good afternoon. One of the first things we have for my department here has to do with the, as I mentioned, the First Peoples and Traditional Territory Acknowledgement for Edson. This is something we've been sort of working on in the back burner for some time. It's our intention to see how council feels about this type of acknowledgement, the wording, and to discuss how this could be rolled into a policy for when to use this acknowledgement. You know, would it be for all public gatherings, all council meetings, and that type of thing. So, the information is in the memo. The body of the acknowledgement, sort of the bottom end of the background portion. I think everybody's sort of heard these types of things read out. Probably did it at UMA and various other gatherings in town here. They've been using a version similar to this at the Arrows games, if you've been there. And it's part of the recommendations that have come out from the Truth and Reconciliation meetings that went on. So this is something that many institutions and many municipalities are adopting in their culture.
Okay. Open the floor. Is that good? All right. Councillor Beyer.
Through the chair to Mr. Destal. So what is the norm for using these acknowledgements, and what do the first people prefer to have as the timing? Like, do they prefer something like this being done annually or at every meeting to acknowledge this, or what is their preference?
From what I've observed, what I've read, it varies. It's usually a larger gathering. Of course, if there are Indigenous peoples at this gathering, at the meeting, it becomes more powerful to do this. So
I think I would add to that, yeah, certainly that's part of the intent is, I think today we're interested in the general nature of the form of the greeting or the acknowledgement, and it will be followed in due course by a policy that would deal with kind of more the procedural, the where, the whens, the how oftens, and those types of things. And we certainly have worked closely with our local First Nations community and would continue to do that. One of the things I think is really kind of challenging with this is we want to issue this acknowledgement as often as is appreciated and meaningful to First Nations people, without it becoming trite or you know, as it says there, you know, pro forma or just cause.
Councillor Bettis?
Through the chair. I attended the Arrows hockey game on Friday, and I believe they used this almost same quote to there when they brought out the little guys, and both teams were there, and they had the Indigenous people come out and that, and it was well received by everybody in that, and you know, it was a moral game too and stuff like that. And I don't know if this was the exact same quote, but it, you know, it went over very well to people. That was great, and you know, I can see it being used in times like that, so it was very well received for sure.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair to administration, I'm in full support of having this statement formalized, and like it was mentioned before, the policy on who, where, and when it's used is critically important. I would advocate for it to be used sparingly so that it has a lot of weight to it and it's respected and holds weight to the words. I did have a comment when I first read it. The last sentence was their spiritual and practical relationship. To me, when I read that seemed to refer to the Métis Nation of Alberta, the previous sentence, and not to all 7 groups. So I'm wondering if you could. It's just how I read it that didn't relate to the entire statement.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Sorensen, this portion of the acknowledgement was worked on by the local people. and they felt that this captured their beliefs and their heritage with that interpretation.
I'm just wondering, instead of saying "there," you could restate these 7 nations or 7 peoples.
Or just
So
specifically
just
say
restate-
indigenous people
Right.
in a more collective
The group,
sense.
the whole group, not just the Métis.
Sure, yeah, we can certainly take a look at that.
Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Mr. Desautels stated, with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, this is hugely important, and I know that many other municipalities have implemented something similar. I would agree. I don't think we need to do it at every council meeting, but certainly during special events or special community gatherings, or if there is something related to Indigenous people where we have those individuals as a part of a delegation, that might be an appropriate way of recognizing the lands that we're on. So I'm in full support, and I'm glad that you consulted with the Friendship Center on this. Thanks.
I would just add that I'm also in full support. This is one of the biggest recommendations they came out with. That was a way for us to move forward with relationships. So I think it's really important. My only request would be that when creating that policy, that we're also doing that in consultation with the Indigenous people in the community, and that we're not making our assumptions from here, but with them on when they think that it's appropriate times for it to be used. I think that's really important. Is that enough? Did you?
I think that's
give enough?
great. Thank you. We'll take that and be prepared to see this again in the near future
Perfect. Thank you.
with the policy.
All right.
Perfect.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on.
Mr. Desdell, you're up again.
yes.
Proposed
Thank
field
you.
use fees.
So I'd just like to take a moment here just to acknowledge Ms. Nan Oriot and Steve Babarski. Steve is the current president of Edson Minor Soccer, and I think everybody here has had an opportunity to read a letter he sent this afternoon. Moving into the presentation, what has sort of preempted or started this analysis was basically everything that's happened with Vision Park in the last 2.5 years. Caused us to really look at costs and where we are and where we could go if council so decides with fee structures for field users. So a bit of history. Of course, the soccer fields and the rugby fields were created with with a partnership between the town of Edson and Minor Soccer, approximately in the mid-1990s. The land is owned by the town of Edson, and a portion of it is owned by the Grand Yellowhead School Division. At the very beginning, and up until recently, the town of Edson granted Minor Soccer $8,000 to assist with maintenance and upkeep of the facility. Over the past several years, as our Parks Department has become more professional and taken on more and larger roles, we rolled back that grant and now take on all of the responsibilities for upkeep of that facility. In 2018, we started tracking all these costs carefully, and were able to determine that, including wages, we spent approximately $32,000 maintaining that facility, cutting grass, aerating, spraying, and generally the maintenance required for the building and the water and that sort of thing. So, I mean, for our Parks Department, providing great service levels and supporting a vibrant and healthy community is in line with your vision for what you like to see with parks. Parks is very important to Edson and Edsonites. So with the collapse of Vision Park and how it used to be run, the town of Edson now manages 29 ball diamonds, which is a fair bunch of ball diamonds to manage. For this coming season, 2019, for the first time, all minor ball and adult ball will be played at Vision Park. We have been in discussion with minor ball since last winter, preparing them for this eventuality. What this is going to allow is for more efficiencies for our parks department, for staging equipment, maintaining fewer diamonds to a higher level that is required for baseball and softball, and just less transportation of equipment from one end of town to the complete opposite end of town, especially for some of the equipment. It's hard to stage it and get it over there. The only field user groups that have paid for the use of sports fields are the adult ball groups. Traditionally, they paid the kinsmen for the use of Vision Park. We carried on with that same fee structure when we took it over, and we can talk more about the fees that we're proposing a little later on. So this sort of just shows what some of the fees that Slow Pitch paid last year, how many teams there were. 47 teams for the summer league, 14 in the fall. All things considered, this brought in a total of about $26,000 in revenue for Vision Park, which certainly helped offset some of the costs associated to maintaining that facility. We have a tremendous amount of grass to cut there, a lot of shale to groom, and it takes quite a while to do this to a level that is necessary to make ball safe. And so in keeping with that, with the idea that it costs the taxpayer money and resources to maintain these facilities, we're feeling that it's a good idea to consider revenue when we look at the big picture. So when we look at some of the costs associated with Vision Park maintenance for last year, it was the first year we took over complete maintenance of the facility. We had a lot of work to do. We had to tear down some things to make it safe. We had to create safer parking areas. We had to deal with water. We had to deal with power. You name it. It was a big undertaking. So not including equipment depreciation and wages, we spent approximately $52,000 at Vision Park. So when we undertook sort of an analysis just to ask around other communities about how they deal with field users, these are the towns and cities that we felt would be helpful in finding out just what they charge and how they deal with it. Some of them are towns, some of them are cities. Our intent is not to say, hey, these guys charge that, so we're going to charge this or propose this. We're more interested in the philosophy as to why they charge and what is the relationship that they have with their field users. So I really found it interesting how Jasper deals with their field users. And you can see that they're really looking at preserving their asset. They know they have a limited growing season. They know that they have tremendous use, not just by their locals, but by people who visit there and want to have tournaments there. Jasper is a destination. They have rugby tournaments, they have soccer tournaments, baseball tournaments, and everything is crammed in that same area. So they really have to manage that facility well to ensure that it's going to be there for the long run. So we also looked at Camrose, and we understand Camrose is a very prosperous area. They're a city, they have great facilities, and they charge accordingly. When you go around, you play baseball or you play soccer, and everybody just woos and ahs at their sports fields. What I thought was really interesting about how they determine what an appropriate rate is, First of all, they've taken the calculation of expenses from both the Parks Department and the Maintenance Department for 3 years. They divided it by the number of registered participants to come up with the rate. And then on top of that, they figured, well, youth sports should get a bit of a break. We want to encourage youth to participate in sports. So they figured youth should pay 60% of what the adults pay. So we felt that was an interesting best practice coming from Camrose. So some of the questions we asked the communities that were listed earlier, pretty basic stuff. What is your field rate? What is your tournament rate? Ball diamonds, same thing for tournaments. Do you guys provide any direct funding or grants to minor sports? What about in-kind? What sort of in-kind work do you guys do to help support your sports and your community? Who maintains the diamonds? Who maintains any buildings associated to the minor sports? And do you have any agreements in place between the municipalities and the associations that are involved? So we feel that in kind, that quantification is an important piece of our support towards field user groups. And when we look at all user groups, associated to my department, we provide a lot of in-kind work, whether it's the use of a storage room to put equipment in, jerseys. It varies a lot. So there's a few jurisdictions that have agreements with minor sports teams to manage, book, maintain some of their fields. The Hintons, Fort Saskatchewan, Spruce Grove, Rocky Mountain House, St. Albert. A lot of times these are related to an elite sports team, travel soccer club, adult soccer, travel, could be a AAA ball team. So a lot of these things aren't really applicable to us, but suffice it to say that communities choose the thing that fits them the best. It can be an agreement with a group. We've experienced that here. We've done that in the past with the Kinsmen specifically, and they ran that facility for many years. Many municipalities have more than one class of sports field. You go to some communities and they'll have your basic generic field. Very little maintenance, very little upkeep other than cutting the grass. Then you have the immaculate Field of Dreams place where the AAA teams play, AA, that sort of thing. And the thing to take away from that is that if there's more operational care, it equals more operational associated costs for that user group. And a lot of times the user groups offset that by having an agreement in place where they take over that. Not in all cases, but in some cases. What we did find is that the majority of municipalities maintain their own assets. So this is included in your package. There's two changes. Athabasca was able to provide a bit more information with relation to baseball, and another slide coming up here. And Leduc was able to provide information for both sports as to what they charge. Again, you're going to see a wide variation of how these things go. Some pay per team per year, some pay per player, per registration per year, some pay by hour of field rented, which is kind of what we do for hockey. If you are a hockey enthusiast and you want to start a league, we will rent you the ice so much per hour. From adult prime to adult non-prime to youth prime to youth non-prime, there's varying degrees of how we go ahead and charge that. So on the softball, baseball side of things, again, very similar. Many communities use the same fee structure for soccer fields as ball diamonds, softball diamonds. Many places that have a concession or a bathroom they will rent that out separately, or they will rent it out as part of the agreement. There are as many interesting agreements as there are interesting communities. There's no real rhyme or reason as to how this is done. Some soccer groups and ball groups do their own lines. Some have the communities do them for them. Again, it depends on the quality of the field that we're talking about. It involves the level of care that the maintenance department or the parks department is contracted to do. Most places, the ball clubs do their own, only because they vary so much depending on the division. So this is just the last few here of the ball user groups. Some places like Athabasca this year, they're going to be using their school soccer fields because their fields near the multiplex, the brand new multiplex, are under construction with the addition of the pool and some other things that are going on there. You'll see St. Albert's kind of blank for ball. That's because everything is run through the St. Albert Minor Ball Association. It's a huge organization that controls all the bookings for their facility. And if you've ever been there to watch any baseball whatsoever, it's quite fantastic as to how it's run. It's very well run. So I mentioned before that almost every community provides in-kind support to minor sports teams. We're no different. Again, common themes include storage and maintenance. And there are municipalities, it appears from this study, that a minority of them delegate this via an agreement with a preferred user group. Again, those travel teams, AAA, ball, that kind of thing. Again, similar to the agreement we had at one time with the Kinsmen. From what I've seen, I mean, I firmly believe, and the administration believes, that we can provide the best quality maintenance, oversight, and support to town of Edson infrastructure and facilities. What we could tell from discussing with other communities is that no communities provide direct funding to minor sports groups that we could see. We do have a grant process that can be tapped by user groups if they want to do something that is in the realm of community development. We certainly aren't going to fund their operations, but if they want to do something to enhance community, we have a program that is in place to help them accommodate that. So this is just sort of a breakdown of in-kind and grants that are available. Some of the in-kind work we do with soccer and the community garden has to do with water and electricity for the that's being used out there. And also they built a nice gazebo out there a couple years ago. We look after the maintenance of that and replace many things every year. We also provide storage for minor ball. So moving forward, again, I mentioned earlier why we were proposing this. As you can see, many other communities are thinking along the same lines. This is sort of what we're envisioning, and would like some feedback and direction on what council would like to see. So when you look at the nuts and bolts of this, basically for minor soccer, minor ball, we're looking at instituting a $20 per player fee. It doesn't have to be $20, it can be less, it can be whatever council wants. This fee, in conjunction with what we're seeing as expenditures would get us into the 40% range. The diamond rental for things that are not included as games or practices would fall into the $60 per diamond per day. So if they wanted to host provincials here for minor baseball, then that would include that. Or if they wanted to have an additional tournament outside of the typical year-end tournament that they have for division. Pretty much casual use of all the fields would remain the same. School use would be unaffected. Soccer would have full run of the fields through booking them, and we would treat soccer and baseball the same way. For the time being, Griffiths Park diamonds will remain free. We're not going to charge anybody for the use of those. We're unsure what the future is for that facility at this point in time. We'll continue to cut the grass, make sure there's no safety hazards there, but we're not going to groom the diamonds and basically the edge of the infield, that sort of thing, like we did in the past. And that would be the same for Glenwood. So this is just sort of a breakdown of the type of revenue we see for sports, organized sports that take place at Repsol. You can see we're in the prime time of minor hockey, pulling in about $15,000. We expect this month and in December, probably a bit more in February as things ramp up with playoffs and provincial games. From the swim team, it's roughly $1,400 a month, $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Figure skating is up there as well. Men's hockey is up there with minor hockey, and I think in some months even more. The old timers are even paying up to $2,300 a month during a peak part of the season, and even the ladies 911 hockey are paying roughly $740 for 1 hour a week. So this next slide just shows some of the registration numbers from field user groups from last summer. And when we're proposing a per player registration fee, we felt it was sort of the best approach, because we don't know how many people are going to be on a team. Maybe 20, could be 12 with a team. For the little guys, it could be 8. Some ball teams might have 10, 11, so we figured the fairest thing to do would be a per capita fee per registration. And the last slide, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking by instituting this fee structure for ball user groups and soccer, rugby user groups. We could be getting in the $35,000 range in revenue, which would put us in the overall 40% range of revenue, which is return, I guess, on our expenses. And again, that puts us also in the what Camrose is using for field use and diamond use at the 60% of the adult rate. So it's basically just something to consider and how you want to move forward with this. And we're really open for discussion and await any feedback you might have.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Sorensen, you had your hand up.
Thank you, through the chair. I do believe the town should be maintaining all of these facilities. I believe that the buck stops with us. I don't want a group within our community to be held responsible for maintaining the mowing or any kind of maintenance, because in the end the public are going to look to us to make sure that it's done. So that's my comment on that. I do think we should set a hard and firm policy on cost recovery of all of our recreational facilities. I think you've mentioned several times today that it's roughly around 40%. Well, I would argue that we should set a very clear policy of 40%. And so that it doesn't matter if you're a swimmer or a rugby player or a curler or a slow pitch player or whatever, you're going to be paying 40% of the cost to recover that, to maintain that facility, not for capital expenses or anything like that. And then when we should be able to estimate our annual budget for that facility and then go to those user groups and say, we need to recover X amount of dollars out of your user group this year. If you want the lawns to be mowed one more time a week, it's going to have this effect on our annual budget, and this is the effect it's going to have on your user group. So I'd start from the annual budget point of view and work your way down to the individual user. And I find it very hard right now to look at all these numbers. Some are per player, some are per team, some are per game, some are per year. So it's very hard for me to evaluate those numbers. I'd rather start at the annual budget level and work your way down to the user. I do agree that youth should be spending a percentage of what an adult is charged. And I know it's going to be mentioned later, but if a user group feels that they've been contributing to capital costs over the years and that the town owes them something, then we should have that conversation on making them whole. But in my opinion, the maintenance should be on a cost recovery basis going forward. So if there's some kind of adjustment we need to make with a particular user group to make them whole, then let's have that conversation. But treat all users going forward on a fair basis, doesn't matter what sport you're playing, and let's have a firm policy, because we all know we're going to have new facilities very soon, and costs are going to go up, and we need to treat everyone fairly. So a firm policy is my preference. Thank you.
Councillor Schnuck?
Yes, I would agree with some of your comments, but when it comes to like minor soccer and our outdoor, we're always encouraging people to get out and get fit. So on the same token, when we're talking, minor soccer, the soccer fields and the other diamonds, we need to encourage use, because we do tax people, and when we pay taxes, we remind them that what it costs for us to put on sporting facilities, fields, etc. So if we're going to go to strictly user pay, then it has to be affected by what we charge in taxes. We owe it to our youth, because, and I agree, once you become a senior, but to the youth, to keep their costs down as bare minimum as possible. So when I look on here for minor soccer, virtually minor soccer made these fields happen in the first place. I don't know what the building is, but through many of grants, back into the 90s, I was part of one, not part of the group, but I was one of the volunteer contractors coming to help it happen. So if we're going to impose this, we have to give them fair time to bring these costs forward. Because if I look at the ball diamonds, that's like park space, that's green space, so we maintain with our grass cutting, keeping it. But on the same token, if we're telling the soccer people there's an up cost, we have to be fair about it, because soccer is one of those ones that a lot of them is young people, so young families starting out. We try to keep their costs as bare minimal as possible so they can afford to play the game. So I like your comment about user fees, but we need to look at our next budget. What are we doing? Are we going to more users pay, or through the taxes? So we have to be fair in that regard as well.
Councillor Fire?
Through the chair. I believe that we do have to have a balance, and that there has to be some kind of cost recovery to this, and that it shouldn't just always come out of general taxation. But I'm a little bit concerned, especially once we had the Edson Early Childhood Coalition report to us about the vulnerable sector, and that physical activity was something that we have been struggling in our region with for the younger kids. And I think some of the families can afford a $20 fee. I think that that's not going to stop them from playing completely. But we've got that vulnerable sector that I know there are other options for them. I don't know if how easy it is to access them. But maybe there's a way to waive it if you're under 6, you don't pay the $20. If you're over, I don't know if that's something that makes sense to help encourage those families to have their children participate and try out maybe sports that they haven't really had exposure to.
Thank you. Mayor Sahara?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Mr. Desatel, I know that you had conversations with minor ball. My daughter plays minor ball, and we certainly expect to contribute to maintenance of that facility. Did you have those same sort of discussions with minor soccer? And what would this do in order to help maintain facilities in our community? I know we have a huge amount of expenditures in order to bring, in particular, Vision Park up to a level where it's safe to play at those diamonds and to have the washroom facilities and those sorts of things.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair to Mayor Zahara. Last year in 2018, we had 2 meetings with field user groups. That's everybody who uses a field in an organized capacity. One at the sort of beginning of the season and one at the end of the season. Both times we discussed the potential for going to a fee structure. Especially with minor ball, moving to Vision Park, because we knew that was a potential site. Griffiths Park is a potential site for the new multiplex. We wanted to make sure that they had their ducks in a row as far as planning and those types of things. So in the fall, we're committed to doing a study and bringing that information forward to council and to the user groups. I did have a discussion via email with minor ball. They're okay with this new proposal. They're happy with a $20 user fee per player. And I might add that with softball, we're not increasing anything this year for adult softball. It's exactly what they paid last year. Part of what makes it really appealing for minor ball is that they don't have to pay for the diamonds at Vision Park to host their tournament, which was a big sticking point for them last year. So we made Griffiths Park available for them to run their tournaments last year. Speaking with the executive of minor ball, I know they are hoping to have some provincial tournaments here this summer, which will require some modifications to existing diamonds out at Vision Park, and we will be working on ensuring we have proper sight lines, backstops if necessary, and maybe increasing field size if that's a problem.
Councillor Breyer?
Through the chair to administration, have we talked to Kids in Sport or Jumpstart to see what type of volume is going through those programs, or if they are getting a lot of people using them, that they're finding that people are accessing them when they need to, or how that dynamic works?
Sure. Through the chair, Councillor Breyer, we through community development we host a lot of these. When people come to our department to make application, and our manager, Ms. Byers, makes those applications. She says she reviews these along with in both capacities. So we don't see a huge amount of use, but there is use. And I know some sports organizations, like I'm pretty sure minor soccer and minor ball, deal with them directly at times.
If I just may add, I certainly think that there's always been and always will be some vulnerable populations, both in terms of exposure to physical activity and financial concerns. I would just suggest that I don't know that general user rates is the right way to engage that issue. I think there's always programs and services that can be offered to those people, but I'm inclined to suggest that the clearest and most consistent guidelines for users is the best, suggested by Councillor Sorensen, that there's a clear philosophy and a clear mandate that we try to apply to the various programs. And my suggestion would be that if council had interest in a vulnerable population program for healthy living of some sort, that we would develop that external to the user fees of our facilities, or I think we are creating a very, very challenging and uncomfortable dynamic in the future. So I do think it's a relevant issue. I just think it would be best done separate from general user fees.
I have my comments now. Anyone? We're good? Oh, Mayor Sahara, go for it.
Well, I would just say, Madam Chair, that I do agree with what Councillor Sorensen says is a philosophy. One of my concerns is that one user group is paying X amount of percentage in terms of cost recovery, the next user group is paying more, the next user group is paying less. There has to be that fairness in the system. You know, and I think we have to understand that there is your capital component and then there's your operational component. I don't think that $20 per player is unreasonable. I think that's still very affordable. And I think that if you want to have these services, there has to be some sort of a buy-in or contribution on the operational side from the users, irregardless of how much was contributed on the capital side. And you know, I certainly understand the point of view of want the town to maintain them, but if a user group doesn't want to pay those fees, then I think they're tasked to be responsible for maintaining those fields. I think this is a great way in order to ensure that we have good facilities within our community. The fact is that it's either users contribute or it's more on our tax roll. And when it's on the town tax roll, when it comes to these facilities in particular right now, it's only town taxpayers contributing to those costs. Unless I'm mistaken, the county's not currently contributing on operational side on the fields at this time. They certainly make lots of other contributions to us, but that's something we have to keep in mind. There is a huge section of our population that will never use any of these facilities, so there has to be that balance there in order to keep these facilities operating and having them available. And I agree that I think from a youth perspective, 60%, I actually was a little surprised with that because I think that's a little high. I would like to see it 50 or 40% of the rate, but I think that I think this is a good plan going forward, and I don't think $20 per player is unreasonable.
Councillor Sorensen.
I would just want to make one more comment that I think we should be open or flexible to ideas. For instance, if minor ball came to us and say we want to pay this all as a lump sum, not as a per player, then let us figure out how we raise that money. I think we should be flexible to that idea. Yeah.
No, I think absolutely we are. We would just ask for the registration number and then invoice them the requisite amount. How they deal with it on their end would be completely up to them, whether it was special fundraising or went on fees, or that would be at each organization's discretion how they dealt with it. That's just one method of us applying the rate on that end. I think too, if I may also just ensure that we tie this to the highest level concepts as well. As we just recently went through and passed a budget where we just really are trying to do everything we possibly can to be responsible in how we allocate resources, and we also have received the strategic direction from council of transparency being a really important part of how we want to operate as a municipality, and user fees fit both of those high-level strategic priorities the best. It's clear the people that are using it are paying, or at least paying a portion of it, and everyone can see those types of things very clearly. So we certainly approached this review with those concepts in mind of trying to live those principles that council has suggested are meaningful to your group. So.
I have some comments. Surprising, hey? I'm in support of user fees for sure, just for the fact that there are operating costs, and I don't think it's fair that there's not user fees for the taxpayers that are not using the facilities and such. I do have concerns, though, of the list that was put forward, and that being, like Councillor Sorensen said, I think we need a more developed, I think we need a policy, and I need a better structure to see how this number came to. So as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be fair. As far as transparency goes, I want it fair. I want it fair for all users. So that means it is fair for soccer, it's fair for swimming, it is fair for hockey, it is fair for all. So we are charging our user fees based on percentage of what it costs us to actually run the facilities that they're using. So these rates that are here, that doesn't provide me, I don't have enough information about where those numbers came from in a formula. So I would need to see that. And I would echo that I definitely think the youth should be, and I would like it lower than 60%. And I would also echo that I do think that it would be responsible on our part, as far as a vibrant, healthy community goes, to look at lower fees under the age of 6. Not so much for the cost factor as the vulnerable sector in getting them involved and getting them active. And that's the place where we want to get them in. The idea being that we're making it as accessible as possible. But I do think that moving forward, we need a policy and we need more of a formula before we can put numbers to it. But I'm not comfortable with numbers without a better developed formula to see where those numbers are coming from. Anyone else? Any comments? Nurse Sahara?
Yeah, just one final comment. If user groups have better ideas or ideas on how to move forward, where they are actually contributing, whether, like, I like the idea of just a flat, this organization pays, it's easier if they just pay $4,000 or $5,000. I want to see those ideas, and I welcome them to send those to us, and I hope that our community services department would look at that and review that. So.
And I saw that was in the comparison that some of the organizations do that. Just a flat rate.
Because one tournament could easily recover quite a bit of that cost, do you think?
Councillor Schnard?
Just a comment, since we have a youth council talking youth, so as we're discussing it, we can involve them, because, we're looking at this as a whole, and I like the comments in this room about we need to look at the numbers and be fair to everybody, because some of and how do we compare, like our ice, we know cost us more money to put into play than a grass fields. So I think your comment, Councillor Sorensen, is right, that we need to look at the whole picture and come up with a proper formula. But bearing in mind, we want the youth to be active, therefore we got to keep their costs down to encourage them to be active. So I look forward to the discussion in the future on this.
Councillor Beyer?
Through the chair to administration, I do agree that we should have a policy regarding this for all our user groups. But is there a way we can bring this forward to our youth council? Would there be enough time to get feedback from them before the next season starts, or when you expect this to be
Thank you.
passed?
Yeah, through the chair, it's really at the discretion of council how that process moves forward. Administration would need at least a little time to incorporate some of the feedback we've received from this group. I'm not sure when the next youth council meeting is scheduled, but I'm sure that would probably work well to take that to them for some consideration.
Something on this in our budget that we passed, have you factored in some of these costs, or if we put money forward to maintain status quo, which gives us time, so we're not under a crunch? So if the numbers that we put forward in our budget are equal to maintain the service status quo, and that'll give us time, so then next year, then every group has a chance if there's extra cost, and then we can consider in the next budget. Or do we need the money now?
No, this budget absolutely provides for the level of service that was given last year, and so it's not the generation of that revenue is not required to operate.
Right.
It's just again the philosophical piece, and I would just suggest, in my personal opinion, there's no reason to wait for another year to do this. I think we know enough and we have enough information that we can begin the process of moving forward, and we can always refine those fees or rates if, as we gather more information in the future, we find that they're not what we want them to be or what council would like them to be. Those adjustments could be made, but administratively we certainly feel there's no reason to wait another year before moving in this direction.
Well, I guess on that comment, to be fair to the user groups, if we've already budgeted in, then we don't have to hurry into this. I agree that we're moving forward with, if we're building a new building, we need to recover user fees, but I think we gotta be fair to the groups that are out there right now And if we can afford with the budget status quo, then that'll give us time. We don't have to hurry into any kind of decisions.
Mayor
Yes, Madam Chair, I know that from underball perspective, as a parent, I was aware this was coming down a while ago, so this is not a big surprise. But I think we need to ensure that we have the right policy in place before we start charging those fees. And I don't think we need to rush this process. Let's get it right. Let's work with our user groups and find a way forward that makes sense. But one thing I'll say right now is that there is going to be a cost to users. That's not going to change from my perspective. Just how do we get there, what that policy looks like, I think is what we need to work on.
Good. Anyone else? Good. Do you have everything you need?
Very good, thank you.
More so? More than you need?
I got
Right.
lots.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to FCSS and Community Service Department update. I believe that's Mrs. Byers. Oh, the whole crew's coming?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The purpose of coming tonight is just to give you a brief update of what we did in 2018 and then what we're looking forward to in 2019. The other thing too, before I get started, is I think you're all aware that you act as the FCSS board, but I'm not so sure everybody fully understands the structure of that and how it works. I'm in the process right now of looking into bylaws and whatnot for what other communities do, because we don't have anything like that written in, and so I think that that's important. But I'm just getting feedback from other communities that are using the same structure that we are, and in the near future I'll give you a lot more information on that, just so that you guys are really clear on how things work and how FCSS and the town of Edson is related and what's all expected of us. Yeah, so we'll move on to some highlights here with FCSS in 2018. I did want to bring my whole team, but Ellie's sick today, so she sends her regrets. Of course, one of the earliest things that happens for us in FCSS is, oh, that's okay, I can keep talking. So the Community Volunteering Contest Program is one of our really important programs that we do run. And last year we did over 500 tax returns for families, and always a very well utilized program and has really good outcomes. The other thing that was planned by Allie last year was we did have a seniors conference, and we did have people attend from Hinton, Grand Cache, Yellowhead County, and some in Edson. Unfortunately, our numbers were really low, and we kind of took a good look at that to figure out why. And we think that there was just too many options offered that day. They had to choose from a lot of different, we tried to make it really vast and diverse, and they could choose a lot of topics, but I think it was quite overwhelming, and they didn't quite understand the concept that way, so it was just a little too much. So this year she's going to incorporate it into Seniors Week and just do basically one set of speakers come in to the Red Brick, sit down, enjoy. So it won't be quite as complicated. The block party program, Allie did a lot of work relaunching it with, I think you guys probably seen the boxes, the trail kits that were to help people get them started. Lots of good information in them, and we had a really successful one in West Haven, and really well received there. The town of Edson continues to host these events in different places, and we've done them at the Green Shacks, we've done them in Millennium Park behind the Red Brick a couple of times, and we're really waiting for it to catch on. And when we're there, everyone just seems to be really overwhelmed with enjoying and getting to know other people and connecting and that sort of thing, but we still haven't figured out the formula to getting more people engaged. It's free. We have an events trailer now that's full of fun things that they can borrow and just take and utilize for their parties, but keep spreading the word. Working closely with the Community Engagement Action Team, we hosted, like FCSS had taken the leadership role in facilitating 2 youth-focused events this summer. We had over 150 youth in attendance, organized with both organizations and the Boys and Girls Club, and Repsol Place was also one of our partners, obviously hosting it at the pool, and Repsol Energy sponsored those events. So corporate sponsorship is always a really important piece of what we do as well. Ali has also done some new, it's sort of different training, I guess they're more event type things, so brain trainer and laughter yoga. And this was really trying to target the adult group and seniors, so it was anybody from 18 and up. And it's just really trying to get people engaged, keep their brain fresh, get them out, get them active, healthy, active living. And she had over 98 participants over the span of 6 weeks, and it was offered free and well received. Howard Lawrence also came out and he did a presentation for our community on abundant communities and what that means. Unfortunately, it was another one of those situations, I think, where he was kind of preaching to the choir, so to speak, because everyone that was there was, a lot of them were community champions already and knowing the value of community and what that means. So, you know, it was a good event. It would have just been nice to see some unfamiliar faces at the table. I think you guys are already aware that in partnership with the Community Engagement Action Team that we were really honored to get that award at the FCSS AA conference. And you know, the Community Engagement Action Team continues to be a really active group in our community and so many wonderful partners at that table. So yeah, on behalf of them, we were quite honored to get that award. And the Haunted Swim and Glow Swims were also something done by Ali. Over 250 youth were there, and she did some outcomes polling, and she said that there was definitely strong agreement that these type of activities and swims makes kids feel like there's lots to do in their community. So it was positive. And we've already talked about block parties. We have the volunteer fair coming up in April. And we're, you know, so please spread the word on that as well, because it's people to set up tables, just to really let people know what is available out there. I think there's a lot of people interested in volunteering, but they don't really know what's out there, or maybe they don't want to commit to being on a board or that sort of thing, but they're not really aware of informal opportunities to just kind of pitch in and do event-based things. So that's going to be really good, again, run by Ali. And she's also going to be hosting it at the schools, and then a community one in the evening, just so that we can reach out to our community youth as well. We've recently applied for the New Horizons for Seniors grant, and if we are successful, over the next 5 years, it'll be worth over $1 million if we get this grant. So it's huge. The grant, what it's all about is basically the inclusion of seniors and getting, so it can be used for transportation programming that helps get seniors out of their homes, gets them engaged in our community, and there will be a transportation portion with that. So yes, it was a very big process, very large grant, and we're crossing our fingers because it'll really mean a lot of good things for the town if we were to get it and our seniors. The grant application for FCSS grants has been revamped. We did put a new one out last year that was given to us by our outcomes coordinator with the province. We piloted it with a few people who are very, very well versed in writing grants, and they were like, "Are you kidding me? This thing's horrible. Like, it's impossible and very difficult, and it's not the money that you're about to give me for what I have to do. Like, I'm not interested." So needless to say, we had to make it simplify it a bit, and then the outcomes portion, we are going to actually sit through and work through the outcomes piece with each agency that's interested. So we still feel like we're going to get the information we need, but we just tried to make it far more simple. So today, I've actually met with McMahon, and they are going to give it a go and see how it works and provide us with some feedback. And there's other agencies that typically get annual grants from us too, and I'll get them to do the same thing. But it's a bit of a living document, and we can make changes as we go to make sure that it works and that we get the information we need. else? So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but well, you would be because you see the budgets, but our approval for FCSS grant again this year is about $226,000, and that comes from the province. And we'll just be gearing up to do their financial and outcomes reports again that they require every year. Moving on to the Parent Link Center, FCSS Parent Link Center. So we have steady and continuous increase in use there. I think anyone that frequents the center really, sees that it's really quite a vibrant little place, and there's a lot going on. But we've also we started hearing comments about it being crowded, and people saying, "When is it quieter? Maybe I'll come a different time. There's too much here. It's too busy, too loud, too overwhelming for my kids." Whatever the case might be, we have tried different things. Like we do have the one room that's kind of a quieter room, so to speak, with dimmer lighting and that sort of thing. But we've still outgrown the space, really. And it's a good problem to have, I guess, because it means that our programs are being very well utilized, and the ladies over there providing wonderful, wonderful programs. The other issues, though, that we do have with this space is that it's really not accessible. I know that the Red Brick does have a lift inside, but depending what time of day it is, or if the Red Brick staff aren't there, then you wouldn't be able to use that lift because they come in the other side door. So that would be really difficult. There's nowhere to park a stroller, so for families that need to walk there or want to walk there, there's nowhere to really leave their stroller and have it be safe when they're there. And the other issue that we're having too is that, and this is not new, we have 2 full-time staff that are there, but because we do a lot of community outreach as well, or with the Early Childhood Coalition or block parties or that sort of thing, if we have one staff out doing that work, we have only one staff in the building, which can be quite overwhelming when you have rooms full of people, and they also run structured programming there as well. So I really feel like I've pushed them to capacity, or they push themselves. I mean, they're wonderful, passionate individuals, but it's at the point where I just really can't ask anymore. I can't ask them to do more evening or weekend or anything, because we're at the point where if they do evening and weekend, then we have to close down during the weekdays sometimes, or if they're going to meetings, we're closing because we don't have an extra casual staff or whatever. So at times we do have casual staff that come in and do daycare or childcare for them while the parents are doing, a learning event or something, but overall we're feeling quite extended there. So that kind of sums up FCSS and Parent Link. Do you guys have any questions?
Keep up the good work. I mean, my only comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Byer.
Through the chair through Tanya. I just wanted to comment about the Parent Link. I know from my experience, it's like the programming is fantastic, and parents really enjoy going there. But yeah, I've also heard that sometimes they say it's a bit overwhelming and crowded in the facility. But I suppose it is a good problem to have, right? So it is very well used. And regarding the block party trailer, can you just remind us what is all included in that trailer for the users?
I haven't actually been in it lately, but I know when Ellie was putting it together, it was tables, chairs, couple shelters, that sort of thing. There's no barbecue in it, and there probably won't be, and it's just strictly because then someone has to take care of it, maintain it. There's games, and sure, what else is in there? Has anyone seen inside it?
Balls in there, and big chess game, checkers game, things like that.
Councillor Schmidt?
I knew I had a question for you. When you talked about the $1 million grant, how will that affect your budget? And it's $1 million over what time frame?
It would be over 5 years.
5 years, so we're looking at $200,000 a year, and that money can be used for what purpose?
The plan that I've put forward is about 100,000 of it would go towards staffing and creating another community development coordinator, which would be specifically there for seniors, and they would be tasked with starting a seniors coalition in our community. So they would basically be spearheading that and getting all of the players that work with seniors at the table to really take an integrated look at what we need to do for them. I think we're really great. We know all the partners, everybody works well together, but a lot of what we do are one-offs, and it's not integrated. It's not, I think we can do better. So that would be the plan, is to get the coalition working together. And then this individual would also be tasked with creating what Ellie's termed the door knocker program. And so it would be actually like going door to door and speaking with seniors and getting them out and creating volunteer opportunities, getting them involved. But transportation is also, I think, $90,000 is what I put in for transportation.
And the other part of the question, what level of government, is this federal or provincial?
It's federal.
Federal? Thank you.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Okay. Now I have my wonderful sidekicks here that are going to share a little bit about their programming.
So we should address the youth shack.
I can take it if you want.
Sure.
Yeah, so basically, obviously you don't have the same slide in front of you that you do, unless you have it on your tablet or something. But yeah, a bit of a change of plans, a very positive change of plans. So originally it was going to be in the, basically in the old Scout Shack. Now, how things have changed, it's going to be in the Kinsman building instead now, which gives us just a lot more opportunities. There's good plumbing in there already. It's a more solid building. We can do a lot more with it, just more options in there, room for a kitchen, more bathrooms. It's just going to be a much more solid facility. So it gives us some more room to work with for not too much more of a price. So overall, it works out really good for us. And then once again, yeah, it says like make your mark. How they have that really cool design on the Scout Shack with the snake. They'll be invited to kind of spruce up this building too and make it look like a very, just nice and inviting place for youth. So obviously with some obstacles there, basically, yeah, staffing to run regular programs, that's going to be a bit of an obstacle there. Just we obviously don't want the youth running free there with just nothing to do. We want a little bit of structure in there. So obviously we can plan activities that are going to be there, but it's going to be tough if we just from the town itself providing people to be there all the time. And as it says right there, we will be looking for provincial grants or other opportunities to provide staffing. Deanna, anything else you want to add to that?
I've kind of began working on a plan, and it's pretty exciting. There's some really interesting things that we can do with the space, and it can be very versatile as well. I'm also with the Hillsburn concert that is coming up on the 30th. I'm kind of focusing on either a fundraiser and kind of a public awareness sort of campaign for the Youth Shack. So I'm hoping that that might help to drum up a little bit of interest. And our youth council is involved in that. They're going to help to run concession and just be my helpers that night. So.
Yeah, you'd be very impressed by the youth council. We asked like, okay, who wants to help volunteer this, and literally all their hands shot up. So they're doing good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. Arts and culture.
Okay. So arts and culture highlights for 2018. I just began in June, and so I kind of have a half of a year to explain to you. I know Ali did a lot of work and stuff, the planning that goes into all of the art in the park, the Canada Day, the galas, and everything that she put on. We're kind of there, and I just jumped into running them. We had a very successful Arts on Fire and Culture Days this year in September. We had a great turnout for Arts on Fire, and every community group that I work with, whether it's a library or Red Brick or the ladies at the museum, were all very helpful in getting that going and doing some great programming with that weekend. Of course, we had an Arts and Sane camp as well in August, and that was a 4-day-long camp for youth, and we did all kinds of really great things. We're going to be doing that again this year because that was one program that we had a waiting list for. So some of our programming has fallen off, so we're doing the best that we can to revitalize that and get more people involved. And Art in the Park is no longer Rotary Art in the Park. They have withdrawn their funding for this coming season. That, along with some weather considerations, and a lower turnout. I'm going to revamp things coming up this year. We're only going to do 3 events instead of 6, but they're going to be bigger events. The first one is going to be in conjunction with the Indigenous communities in the area, and so it will be National Indigenous Peoples Day. We're going to have a movie in the park that is Indigenously based on National Indigenous Peoples Day, and then we're going to have another celebration either Saturday or Sunday, but I will be meeting with them, so kind of what is going to happen. We're going to have another one July 27th, and that one is going to be more of, because it is art in the park, I would like to integrate more art into it. So a big community art project, more local bands, and I'm going to have dancers there even from the Edson dance enthusiasts to do some dancing and some demonstrations for us. And then the last one is going to be in conjunction with the Edson District Historical Society to help celebrate May Days at the end of August and beginning of September. That's kind of looking forward. And Canada Day, we're going to break it up, I think, into two different kind of kids entertainment for the morning from 11 until 3, and then we'll do more concert in the park in the evening. Yeah, I'm focusing on partnering as much as I can with local groups. The more help, the more involvement that I get from the community, the more that the word spreads, hopefully the more people will come out. And also it helps to engage community groups and to promote them and to help their cause as well. So that's basically my part of it. Any questions?
Mayor Sahara.
Thank you very much for that update, Deanna. I'm very happy to see that you're looking at splitting up Canada Day a bit. I know that was one of the comments I heard last year, was it was all kids focused, and those that didn't have younger kids kind of didn't really have a lot to do down there. So I'm glad to see that, and I think that doing some bigger events with Art in the Park, it will be much better than the amount that we had last year. Summer is short and people have lots to do and want to fit a lot of things in. So my question is, though, with Art in the Park, are we going back to Sundays, or are we still going to have some days Saturdays, some days Sundays, or have we really figured that out?
Through the chair to Mayor Sahara. We are going, it really depends on mainly on the groups that I'm working with and how it works with their focus. It's looking like National Indigenous Peoples Day will be Friday night for the movie, and then we will do probably a Sunday activity that day. I'm looking at Saturday for the July one because I would like to make it longer, from 2 o'clock until 10 o'clock, and those hours won't work as well on Sunday. And then what May Days, that is also going to depend on what works with the Edson District Historical Society.
Councillor Schnarr?
Actually, the mayor asked some of the questions, but with Arts in the Park, if we go back to where it originally started and then the costs got exploded out of control, but I believe when we had Sundays in the park and encourage we have a lot of talent in this town, local singers, dancers, performers, so I like Sundays because even where I used to go to them all the time, when you change the dates, of course I didn't reset my calendar, but a lot of people look forward to Sunday, it's Arts in the Park, but I'm thinking in my mind Sundays in the park. So if we would do more Sundays in the park, make them more inexpensive and because I agree with the groups, but I mean, have you explored that option? Because we have so much talent in this town that we could get, go back to grassroots instead of, like, a lot of times we really enjoy it where you've hired expensive entertainment to come out, which was greatly appreciated, but it comes at a cost. So with our funding cut from sponsors, we should look into doing something a little more inexpensive, and we can still run it every second or third Sunday.
Care to Councillor Schnarr, that's absolutely my focus.
Okay.
Yeah, that is absolutely my focus. I really think that with the community groups that are in town, and actually I had some fiddlers, they're called the Yellowhead Fiddlers, they contacted me today, and they just would like a venue to be able to play, and so I completely agree. We don't need to hire here and there to highlight things, perhaps, but I really do believe that I want to focus on the culture and art that we have right here in our community and promoting that and giving people a venue to showcase it. Absolutely. And I will take your Sunday comments too.
I like this Sunday.
Yeah.
And not only I like the Sunday, most people had a program in their mind, like it's Sunday, like, you know, whatever name it was Sunday in the park. So even people passing through would comment on Sunday, Hinton, Jasper, wherever, they go, hey, what's going on? So, I mean, I'm not against, I agree where the certain days have to be there, but Sundays in the park, you know, people plan, not everybody goes camping. We have some pretty good turnout, so.
Councillor Byer?
Through the chair, I've got 2 questions to Tanya and her crew here. I'm really glad that you guys have been able to revamp the programs that have had a lower turnout and try to find other ways to make them a little more exciting or to draw more people in. I did have a question on the youth shack. Do you guys have a rough idea of how much you're looking for fundraising efforts to complete that project?
Through the chair, at this point, we had, I believe it was $25,000 put towards it for the renovations. But we also are going to have to take our operating expenses out of that, so heating and electricity, so that's going to bring it down a little bit. At this point, really, I think until we start kind of tearing the building apart and doing the renos, which a lot of them, thankfully, Town of Edson staff are going to be able to do to keep our costs down. But, you know, you always come across unforeseen issues. You know, our plan is fully to stay within budget to do as much as we can with what we have. The real concern is going to be, like, we would love to hire staff to be there regularly after school hours sort of thing. But at this point, it's not a reality. I mean, the coordinators can all run events out of there in the evenings or weekends, but with only 3 of them, and they have a lot of other things to do, so to ask them to be there full time is impossible, right? So, sorry, I didn't really answer your question, but no, we really don't have a set amount. We originally thought we would need more because we would have to bring plumbing and water to the other shack. But now that the Parks group has gracefully given us their shack, it's going to be a far more useful, larger, better space, and we're pretty excited about it.
Okay. And just one more comment. I'm really excited about the projects or the Arts in the Parks events that you guys have coming forward based on what you said. So it sounds really exciting.
I'm very excited too.
And if I could just make one other comment to everyone through the chair. One thing that we've really, now that our team has settled in, we've been here for a while and we seem to be off and running in our own areas, but also finding ways that we work together really well. One of the biggest focuses that we have put on is project logic models and outcomes measurements. So we're really trying to get away from just doing a whole bunch of things just because lots is more and lots is good, and at the end of the day, like, what difference does it make, right? Like, we had so many things planned in our Explore Edson brochures, and we canceled so many things this year. And it was because, you know what, we only need so many art classes, or we only need so many hunter education classes. And so it's actually very time consuming for us to go through all the work to plan all these things, have all the venues booked, and then have to cancel them and call the 6 people that did sign up. And you know, and then you're also letting down the individual that was hired to facilitate the programs. So anyways, we really just kind of pulled back and we're saying, okay, let's take a really good look at what we're doing, what's going well, what's filling up, and more isn't always better. Let's do what we can and do it well.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, I'm really glad you said that, because that's exactly what my comment has always been as well. Just adding more programs isn't always the best, and if you have a low turnout, rather than trying to build up that turnout, just refocus your energy somewhere else. So I'm really happy to hear you say that.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
I'll just carry on with the review of recreation stuff here, so I'll just kind of go over some of the major events we had last year and kind of how it'll change moving forward. Step It Up had a great year, over 700 participants, most that we've ever had. And
Council
just,
beat you.
Yeah,
just wanted to
yeah,
talk about
yeah.
council did beat
I was
the
doing
town of
position-
Edson.
Yeah, no, we have plans to overcome that this year.
Good luck.
Not gonna happen, Scott.
So, you know, we're making some changes to the program, just like some positive ones, just to kind of deal with the amount of people and just, you know, prizes and stuff like that. It's like, okay, obviously if it's gonna be this level, we're just gonna be doing a bit of tinkering there to make it more suitable for larger crowds. Eddie's Big Run continues to be a major success, attracting over 300 participants. Now, over the past few years, it's not been anything major or alarming, but there's been a slight decline in Eddie's Big Run runnership. So we're basically working on doing a bit of rebranding right now, and also working on doing some collaboration with Hinton and Whitecourt, because they have races of a similar nature, to kind of do take a collaborative approach with those other races, just to kind of raise the profile of running in the area and hopefully attract people out. Or if they do, say, the run in Whitecourt, they'll want to do the one in Hinton or Edson. So stay tuned there, and hopefully some good things will be coming that way. Youth interagency events, they continue to attract a lot of youth and provide excellent opportunities. So that kind of to go along with what Tanya's saying, how we're looking to track things better, just so we have better numbers to back things up. So this fall, we really started to track the numbers quite a bit better for youth interagency. And essentially just with fall programming alone, up basically from fall till Christmas holidays, over 150 youth participated in activities. This is made possible by contributions of over 153 in-kind and volunteer hours from over 35 individuals. So I think Youth Interagency is a great example of, you know, it's a town kind of spearheaded thing, but just how we can, if we work together with our community partners and work to build community, we can do things much better than what we could do on our own. We also hosted Go Girl this year. It was kind of my first event being thrown into, kind of felt out of place there, but we had over 170 girls attend from the region, and once again, one of those projects where we couldn't have done it without the help of community volunteers, so lots of help from community groups there to make it happen, and it was a huge success. And then Youth Council, not necessarily fully recreation oriented, but that's kind of the area that I've been put over at this time, and yeah, we had 19 applicants, a lot more than we thought there'd be, and as I'm sure you've all heard already, we've had a lot of success with the Youth Council. They know what their roles are, they're very happy to help out, and a lot of good things will be coming, so we're pretty excited about that. Just to carry on, so once again, I think we've kind of seen through the theme throughout a lot of this is we're looking to gear more activities towards community development, basically finding more opportunities for collaboration that will help to strengthen community groups. So for example, we had a geocaching event last fall that brought out a lot of people from the geocaching community. It helped kind of bring them together, so that was good. And one more thing, where it's still, we're doing a bit of research with it right now, but we're basically exploring options for recreation fee assistance. So youth interagency programs, town fitness programs, stuff like that. And we're just kind of researching some best practices, like Okotoks has a good model. I think it's Canmore, they had a good one too. There's a few good ones in the province, so we're just kind of looking at what'll work best for Edson, and that's something we're working on right now. But that's just kind of the, and of course we're also offering fitness classes and stuff as per usual, but that's just kind of the broad overview of what's happening in recreation.
Thank you. Any questions? I have to tease Scott a little bit. His first Go Girl, we went to pick up the chocolate milk, and it was like the medium-sized chocolate milks, and all of us went, did you get the, and then a male's perspective on a normal size of chocolate milk.
That is a normal size of chocolate.
Yeah, and we went, these are the biggest chocolate milks we've ever had in an event.
There's a
The
smaller size?
The girls loved it. The girls loved
A
loved
lot of calcium in their diet.
Yeah,
so
a lot of calcium, you know, running around with chocolate milk in their tummies. Yeah. Right, any other questions? Thank you. That was an amazing recap. It's really nice to see. I appreciate the numbers.
I was just going to comment on Step It Up. You're challenging us again.
I don't think we have a choice, so we will be challenging you. Yeah, we'll be back bigger and stronger. So, yeah. Oh yeah, just another thing. Tanya just reminded me, we're going to be doing it in April instead of May this year, just kind of due to staff timing and stuff. So. Yeah.
Jeez, no,
Yeah,
we
so,
needed
you know,
it during FCM.
yeah,
That's how I got these guys stepping.
Extreme conditions, you know, toughening you guys up a bit. Might be a little bit of snow out there, but yeah, but just how our schedule's working out, that works out better if we want to really execute the event the best we can with staff being here and stuff. So yeah.
Keep talking.
Just get my new shoes ready.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. That was fantastic.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have no information items or sundry items. So moving to questions from media and public regarding items from the committee of the whole meeting. I'll just remind people it's not a public hearing, so just direct questions about this specific meeting.
I just have a question for community services, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, since the youth shack won't be used, or sorry, the scout shack won't be used as the youth shack, is there anything that's going to be done with it?
Yeah, do you want to speak to that, Gordon?
Yeah, basically, the Parks Department will be moving some of their kits and things like that into that building.
Okay.
And some of the maintenance kit as well.
Okay, that's all I have.
So you
So we're kind of
switched
trading.
buildings.
Yeah.
They're trading down.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Once they saw the cool snakes on the outside,
It's
we'll
very
take
Parks-like,
it.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I don't have a question, but I'll try and make it into a question.
Okay, make it into a question.
Quick comment is I'm not part of Edson Minor Soccer. I actually retired last year, but I have a lot of history, and just as a question, perhaps, the little bit that I have a smile about is some of the history was maybe a little inaccurate about soccer, and that my question is that hopefully the council understands that not all sports are the same, and there is very big differences between turf management of soccer fields versus other fields, and that they have to be dealt differently, and the costing for soccer is considerably lower than anything else you have. The biggest thing is field development of over 500,000. But as far as maintenance, it's or operation, it's just pretty well the mowing. And we also took care of our fertilizing and aeration prior to this completely.
Thank you. And I think that was voiced pretty clearly across the council that we're looking into a policy and a formula that makes sense based on cost of running. Yep. Hey, any other questions?
I don't know how this works, so I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Is it
Madam Chair,
so
maybe
just
I
ask
can
the
just
question?
suggest we recess for 10 minutes.
yeah, if it's not a direct question, we
Okay.
can recess and we can have a conversation. Would you prefer that?
Sure. Well, actually, I do have a couple of quick direct questions. I think one is my own fault. I wasn't really paying attention. What did you say I shouldn't say I was paying attention. I didn't catch it on my paper. What was the cost of running soccer this year did you throw that number out, or am I mistaken?
So the cost of running the soccer fields per se, that's mowing, aerating, all the things that we did out there last year, when we look at the coding, including wages, was approximately $32,000. Now, when we factor in the in-kind with the power and the water, that's probably about another $4,000.
And does that include the
That's
water line
basic-
break
that's
that
it,
took
yeah.
place?
Right. So the maintenance that was required to resolve the break in the water line is part of that. That's part of the maintenance. If there's a doorknob that's broken off, we fix that. That's part of that as well. We did a lot of ditching work out there. Lots of odds and ends per se. So of course that's made October.
Yeah,
So-
I'm trying to get an idea. That seems high to me, and that's why I'm asking. I'm trying to understand. I know we did one aeration, one.
Maybe we should,
fertilizer.
let's call it recess.
Sure.
Let's call it
Sure.
recess, and then
Okay.
we don't have to.
Sure.
Motion to
Nope,
recess.
that sounds
So,
good.
yep, Mayor Sahara makes that motion. All in favor? I get a motion to move into in-camera. Councillor Schnard, all those in favor?
And now we're going to do a break again.
We're going in.
Just crack the door there.
Can I get a motion for adjournment?
I can do that as soon as Steve's ready. You ready?
Councillor Schnard, all those in favor?